All right, folks. Is that coming through now? It is. Okay. Hey, Stan. Thank you very much. Yes, silent Pat. Just OBS doing what OBS does and deciding to just turn off my mic completely. I decided to switch it out. Anyway. All right, folks. Well, we're going to give it a couple of minutes, let people find their way in on this Friday. A big happy Friday to everyone that's already here. And you in particular, Stan, because obviously you're the first one to say hi. So. All right, folks. How are we doing? Let me just do a quick refresh here on my Twitch. I'm not getting any updates on the chat. That's better. Okay. All right, folks. Welcome back to another Firestorm Studio stream. My name is Pat, and today we are continuing with our A to Z of sculpting in Zbrush. And we are continuing with our Mothman. So we've managed to get quite far with it up to this point. So let's take a quick look over the model and just see where we actually are with it and see what changes have been made between the previous stream and today's one. So you'll see that I just hide all of my subtools here. You can see I have two versions of the character body. I have a sub D version. So this is one that has subdivisions. And we have the wings and the body connected. The points are not welded here. All we've done is merge everything down so everything is the one piece. Hey Manic, thanks for coming in, thank you. Happy Friday. And we've merged that down. Now, what I have done in between streams is I've made a Dynamesh version of this. So if we turn on the wireframe, we can take a look at the high resolution version. I've also fused this together. If I go ahead and isolate the polygroup, you can see that we have a couple of gaps where other parts of the model should be sitting, okay? So we know that this is now fused together and working the way it should, and this is now the version that I'm retopologizing inside of Maya. We may take a look at that today, but I'd rather work on some of the fur on the body of the Mothman, and then I want to go over to Maya and start looking at working up a more final version of our lamppost and look at a couple of different ways that we can polygon model that directly inside of Maya. That should be a lot of fun because I haven't had a look at that in any detail yet, so we're going to find out together how that works. So as I said, so first of all, we're going to take a look at the cloth. You'll also notice, not the cloth, sorry, the fur. You'll also notice that we've added some antennae, or antenna from the last time. I've refined them a little bit, and the reason I've done them this way is it allows us to do a little bit of both. We can have them turned off for a more accurate representation of the concept art. So if I go into texture, and let me just bring in the concept. Let's bring the concept in here. There we go. Wrong one, not the background opacity. We don't want that. We want the standard opacity. So there we go. So once again, for anyone who is new here, the reference that we're using today is by the artist Sam Sheeran. You can check him out at mrsamsheeran.com. He has graciously allowed us to use this amazing concept of his as the basis for our own Mothman. But we've also we've added our own little Firestorm flair to it. We've added some antenna to it, and I've also added my own versioning of the furry body. Okay, so I've kind of taken a bit of artistic license about how I want it to look. So you could argue that our version of the Mothman looks quite bat-like, but I kind of like that. I like that look. I don't necessarily need it to look like a full moth, because I think moths, I don't consider moth that scary. And I think he looks creepier with the kind of broken up wings and things like this. So there we go. So as always, folks, if you have any questions or queries about what it is that we're working on today, or anything to do with the industry or asset creation in general, feel free to ask in the chat and I'll answer the question if I can. Now, one of the areas that we haven't really done a lot of work on here, I'm going to switch over to the sub D version here, is the fur. Now, we've got a very rough version of the fur, but there's a lot of gaps in here. And that's not something I want. I want to kind of fill in any kind of cavity areas and make it all one cohesive piece of mesh, and then sculpt in some more final details. And the reason for that is that we're going to be 3D printing this at one point. So I want to kind of keep that in mind when I'm working on the model. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the model. And I'm just going to check I don't have any layers or any subdivision surfaces on it. I don't. That's all good. And now, and to be fair, you know what we could actually do here? Let's delete that. And I'll show you another option here when you're working. We can grab the subtool and go up to clone. And what ZBrush will do is it's going to copy that subtool that we had selected and put it into its own subtool list. This is just sometimes a cleaner way to work. Just be very wary if you're using this workflow that you save your files accordingly and that you're aware of it and you don't accidentally close down ZBrush and forget to save this. Or remember to move it back into your original file. So with that kind of separated out, I'm going to go into the brush menu. I'm going to go into the insert mesh brush. So I'm going to tap I and then collect the primitive brush here. I'm going to select the polysphere, make sure I have symmetry on. I'm going to have to rotate round to get to a bit of a funny angle here. And I'm simply just going to drag that sphere out. It doesn't have to be completely symmetrical or perfect, because it's all going to get Dynameshed down together anyway. I'm mainly looking here for the ability to fill out the cavity in the middle of the mesh. Okay. And remember, when you apply a insert mesh brush, it will mask the object that you're applying it to, which is great because what that allows us to do with our new polysphere here is I can hit Control D and it's going to smooth it. And it's going to add a bunch of extra subdivisions to it. And that's going to allow me a lot more control when I'm manipulating the object. And I'm going to leave polygroups on here so that I can see where it's intersecting the rest of the mesh and where I need to potentially clean it up. And I'm going to pull this forward to here. We may still have to do a little bit of extra sculpting to clean up this new section, but I would rather that than have a large cavity on the inside of the mesh. I'm going to close all this down, subdivide again, give myself a little bit more to work with. And I wouldn't normally do this if the model wasn't going to be 3D printed. This is only something I do when I'm 3D printing. Okay, now that that's in one place, we are going to, let's duplicate the mesh now. And you can see why cloning this out is a lot cleaner, in that it just makes things a bit easier to work with. Less chance of making a mistake. So with this, I'm going to, I think what we might do is, at the moment it's not symmetrical, but we can reintroduce that asymmetry again later on. I want to clean this up first, so we're going to do a mirror and weld. And then I'm going to Dynamesh it together. make sure symmetry's on. And you'll see that immediately, as soon as we do that, it's going to look a little bit messy, but that's to be expected. We can go into deformation, and we can start cleaning that up with a polish. I'm going to smooth again, remove some of the high points. And I know it might seem counterproductive to kind of essentially redo this, but the original version was just a stand-in. We want to approach things in a little bit more of a methodical way. I'm going to smooth all this out, and then I'm going to do another Dynamesh. I've got a nice clean model to work with. Mirror and weld. And possibly do another little bit of polish on that. Drogon, thank you very much for the follow. Much appreciated. I'm going to bring the tail out a little bit here. Maybe work on that. Keep subdividing, sorry, keep redynameshing until I'm overall happy with it. We will bring the kind of the tuft at the front down. I'm aware how dodgy it looks. This is just a Firestorm thing now. We're going to make suggestive looking models. Been done before, and we just got to keep going with that theme. It gets the views up. You know, what size? What with the tiny size the fur is it going to be resin? The thing is, you can get by with using FDM depending on the scale of the model that you use and the size of the nozzle that you have on your FDM printer. Obviously, resin is going to be the best option for something that's so fine, but you would be surprised at how far you can push a FDM printer these days, as long as you're willing to wait for it to print. It takes a long time to print detailed models on FDM, because the slower you actually print, the more time each layer has to properly kind of cool down, and then the next layer that comes on top of it is just going to continue that that kind of system, and then you're going to end up with a much smoother looking appearance. So that's the thing. It's something that a veteran 3D printer that I know, he's had his own 3D printing company for 15 years now, 10, 15 years, I think, yeah. And that was his biggest advice to me, was print slowly if you're using FDM. So with that in mind, we're going to jump back over to our original model, and we're going to append this new version. We'll see a huge difference here. Didn't know that could be done. I've gotten quotes on getting one of my model printed, and both of them said to do resin print and not FDM. Resin printing is going to be easier. If you are doing anything fine, then resin printing is going to be the better option. But if you didn't want to, if you're printing at home and you don't want to go down that route, FDM is possible. It's never going to be the same quality as resin, not yet anyway, but you can get pretty close. Depends on what you're happy with. I mean, if you were printing models to then sell, I would of course say, yeah, do it on resin. You're going to get the best one-to-one version of your model if it's in resin. The downside of resin, of course, is that unless you're using something specialized, they're very brittle. They're very, very brittle. So even though you can get all these fine little details, if you drop it or maybe knock it, it's easy to snap. So you still have to take into account that your model will be a physical object once it's printed. So whenever you are 3D printing, make sure that you take into account anything that is small, thin, or potentially brittle, and maybe just add a bit of extra thickness to it. It's just one of those things you have to do, I'm afraid. So now that that's done, I can switch back over to, obviously you can see the difference here. But I'm now going to take the new fur, and we're just going to clean this up a little bit. There we go. I'm going to hide I can't actually hide the wings at this point. Might be able to just hide them like this. There we go. That's better. And with this cleaner version, we are going to continue to clean up the model. There we go. The full body on that looks even more like a peen. Yes, it's unfortunate that we just can't get around that, I'm afraid. Again, that's the thing. I mean, who knows? I mean, one time on the Firestorm stream, I might do some like full-on anatomy stuff, like anatomy studies at some point. Obviously, we've got to get through our creature sculpt. But who knows? In the future, we can do some full-on anatomy stuff if that's what people want to see. And that's the thing, folks. Remember, we are very flexible in what it is that we show on streams. If people want to see certain things, then, you know, you can join our Discord and you can engage in the community and you can, you know, share your thoughts and let us know what kind of things you want to see. Okay. I'm going to re-dynamesh again, mirror and weld, and just going to start shaping the direction of the fur. Jeff Hansen. How does it work with you guys streaming while working in the studio? Is it in between work or how do you do it? So Jeff, that is very dependent on who is actually working with Firestorm. Not everybody works on the commercial projects. Some of us work just on the stream team. For example, I only work on the stream team for Firestorm. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about the other things, I would definitely recommend reaching out to Heather, or even just jumping over to the Firestorm Discord and you can ask there as well and get a little bit more details. But all I can do is give you information regarding the kind of streaming side of it. Sorry folks, I've lost my pressure sensitivity, so I need to switch back, and I've lost my chat window. Hold on. There we go, and we're back. So let me just, why is that? Yeah, we are working, that's fine. All I'm doing now is starting to build up a cleaner approach to the fur and the direction I want it to go in. It's going to, I don't want any of the fur to be on the back part here where the wing is, so we're going to carve that away and re-dynamesh again. So you'll see that I'm re-dynameshing constantly, and that's just to update the model as I work. It keeps it clean. It stops having as many stretch polygons, and that's also very important, again, if I'm going to be going to 3D printing. Because, for example, you might want to print this object in, say, 3 parts. You could print the underbody, then the fur could be a separate piece that clips on with a key, and then the head could be a separate part as well. So the whole head could be completely separate if we wanted to. I'm going to hide the antenna here so that we can go in and start tweaking some more of this. Let's get it a bit higher than I would like actually at the moment, so we're going to knock that back a bit. Again, just do another quick re-dynamesh, mirror and weld. And I'm going to start, again, we don't see a lot of this, so I'm just kind of inferring a lot of the detail here. from the image. I'm just going to going rogue with it, if you will. There we go. Getting the idea of this, how the fur is going to pop out of the head from underneath the neck. A little bit of indication as to how the fur is working its way down the body. A bit of directionality for the fur. And then we've got two options. I've got a couple of brushes that I like to use for creating fur. Just to speed things up for the stream. On the back here, I'm going to take a dam standard and just do a quick center line. Like so. Take my clay brush. Let's just increase the weight a little bit. And we can start creating that directionality again. Being a little bit more thoughtful with each stroke I'm putting down than I was previously when we were just doing the sketch. But smoothing it back, because I know already that I'm going to go over this with another brush. Ghosty VX, thank you very much for the follow. Oh, I'll let Zbrush do its thing and save. I also believe today it is David Attenborough's birthday. He's 100 today, I believe. And that's quite amazing. And if you don't know who David Attenborough is, then shame on you. I jest, of course. No, if you don't know who David Attenborough is, please do look him up. He's somewhat of a legend. And one of the greatest voices of our times. And probably one of the most iconic as well. Again, building up with very, very light strokes. Anywhere that I want the fur to hang, I'm going to switch over to the AccuCurve brush using the Move tool. And I'm just going to start pulling that out and down, like so. I don't want to go too far with this because, again, I have a brush in mind that I want to use. And I can do the same with the knee. I'm going to go too far with this because I don't want to indicate too much directionality. I want to keep it fairly neutral, just in case I want to pose the character and then not have to sculpt and resculpt anything any further. I think at the back here, we'll do a little bit of adjustment, just where the tail's going to be. There we go. Actually, no, I liked the way that was. There we go. Just you know what might be quite nice actually is just to add a bit more, just a little bit of fur coming down the back where the tail is. Like so. There we go. All right. So let's just open up the brush. Do I actually have it in my... I don't actually have it in my tool set here. So I'm going to have to go find that. So that's going to be in brushes, hair and fur. And we're going to be using, if I can find where it is. In here? Nope, it's not in there. Interesting. Oh no, where's my... Oh, I think I know where it is. My apologies. It's not under there. I have a folder called collections and it's in here, I think. No. That's quite frustrating. Where is this? Where have I put this brush? There it is. My apologies, folks. Took a while to find it, but I found it in the end. Dragon Lisco. And in here, we should have his fur brush. So if you are looking for this, this isn't a free brush, so you would have to pay for this. So I'm just making that very clear. This is not a free resource. But if you do want to support the artist, it's an artist called Dragon Lisco, and they're excellent fur brushes. So what I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to try and pick one of these shapes here, and with symmetry on, I can click and drag out to create some tufts. Now, you're going to notice that we're getting a lot of broken up shapes here. That's because we don't have enough resolution. So the key way to fix this is to turn on Sculptors Pro. That way, when I draw out one of the strokes for the fur, like here, if I just start doing some of this, Sculptors Pro is going to tessellate automatically and create the shape that I need. Okay, I'm going to step back a little bit, and I think what we'll do here is we'll hit subdivide and then delete the lower. So we're giving Sculptors Pro a little bit more, giving it a little bit of an easier time to create the shape that we want. So I can swap between these. I think we're going to go with this one. Now, I think I'll leave symmetry on. It's not going to work completely perfectly. That's something to bear in mind whenever you're using a brush. It might not work completely, in one go. You may have to go in and edit it a little bit or adjust the brush to suit what you need. I'm just still trying to find, I actually think I might have hit it the first one, but there we go. I'm going to stick with this one. And I'm just going to use this to lay out roughly where I want the fur to go, just overlapping it. And I'll go in and resculpt, or not resculpt, but I'll clean up each of the fur strokes later on. You can think of this as just that first pass. We want that kind of wiry, spiky fur. And here's a neat trick as well. If you are working in ZBrush with a brush that is pointing in one specific direction, so you'll see as I drag this out, the curve of each stroke is pointing up the way. We want to go the opposite way. We simply go to the other side with symmetry on, and then we will get the opposite of that brush. So now I can start creating the fur the way I want in the opposite direction so that we get a nice little bit of overlap here. And then I just need to switch back to the other side if I want to then continue creating a little bit of variation and having it overlap. Okay. Now, in order to kind of get rid of that, the obvious symmetry, we're going to switch over to a kind of flatter looking brush, or even just a brush with no symmetry. And then we'll go in and start overlapping like so. and then just starting to kind of randomize it. You don't have to break the symmetry completely, we just want to break it up a little bit. There we go. And then when we get to top here, we can go back into symmetry mode, and we can start filling out other parts of the fur. And the thing with doing any kind of fur, particularly like this, is you might think, oh, if only I had a brush that I could just brush it on and it would give me that full effect. You will not get brushes fully like that. You do get some. So for example, if I open up this, if I use this PAB or Sculpt brush, this is a great one for getting directionality in. So if I turn off Sculptris Pro, I can use this brush. Actually, I think I might need to turn it on. There we go. You can see that I'm able to indicate where shorter fur might be going. And this is going to be useful further down the model, but we're not going to be using that extensively because we want to create a little bit more substance to each of them. Okay, what I might do with a brush like this is I might use it to supplement some of the smaller areas like this. Okay, is that spawning elements like an IMM brush or is it VDM? It's VDM. It's a VDM brush. And if anyone's curious what a VDM brush is, all it means is that it's using a piece of geometry and acting as a displacement map when you draw on the surface. So rather than creating a separate object and just placing it on the surface, it's dragging that object out of the geometry that we have, which is why sometimes it can look a little bit rough. Okay, it's going to look a little bit raggedy if you don't have enough geometry. All right, so I'm going to go back to that brush again. Where is it? There it is. Yeah, I really like this brush. I'm not going to lie. It's made projects that I've had a lot quicker to work with. And then sometimes you're going to get issues where the brush just won't work and you'll have to go in and manually sculpt. Okay. There we go. Okay, so let's bring back the arms a bit there. There we go. So you can see the kind of effect that we're going for. All right. Now, instead of going over and covering the whole body, let's instead take a little bit of a look at how I might go in and refine some of these areas. So let's take our fur Dynamesh here and let me check the time here, folks. Okay, we're 40 minutes in. I'm going to duplicate this. Okay, always duplicate stuff in ZBrush. Just make sure that you're not going to end up, overwriting something by accident. So just duplicate the model or clone it out like we did at the beginning, so you've got that rollback if you need it. So something I do like to do is go into geometry, go under clay polish, and I'm going to turn off Sculptris Pro here, and simply just hit the clay polish button at the default settings. There we go. Okay, now you'll see what that does to the surface. It's a little bit extreme, so I'm going to undo that. I'm going to lower the sharpness down to 0, soft to 0. I'll leave the max at 25 just now. See how that works. That's looking actually not too bad. There we go. And essentially what it's doing is it's essentially polishing. It's a different approach to polishing the edges. That's why everything is masked. So you'll see that if I do clay polish and then do an invert of the mask, I could go in and say, right, well, I want to take my deformation here and just do polish. And now all it's doing is polishing those nice sharp edges. And if we turn off the mask, oops, did not mean to hit unify. If I turn off the mask here, so view mask, what I'm able to do is keep the base of that fur that I've sculpted. Let me just go back into where I was. I can keep, sorry, as I was saying, I can keep the base that I've sculpted there, but it's going to clean up a lot of the edges. And then I can go in and start to manually sculpt it or use other detail brushes to kind of bring it out each stroke, okay? So let me just see if I do. Yeah, see, we've got to be careful because we can't go too far. I think we've maybe, yeah, we've gone as far as we need to there. So let's go into masking and then just clear the mask. And generally I would do this, I would do this part asymmetrically. Okay. And now I can go in and I can start to smooth any areas that I'm not overly happy with. But let's take some of these areas here. Now, what I can do is I can go in with my clay brush and I can start to support and kind of just increase the overall volume of each of these and just clean up those transitions a little bit. Using the shapes that I put down before as a guide. If there's any areas that are a bit too high, we can just smooth them back. And this will be, and then once we're happy with that, and we're overall happy with the adjustments that we've made, we can go in with another round of the brush. So let's take the fur brush here. And now if let's lower that intensity a bit. And we're running out of resolution here, so let's put some resolution on that. There we go. Now I can start. Oh wow, that's really crispy. That's not what I really wanted. Okay, bear with me. I'm just going to do a quick overall smooth here. So we'll do a quick polish. There we go. That's better. Okay, and just subdivide that one more time. And now I can start to get some of the finer detail onto each of those strokes. Okay. And the alternative as well is if you don't want to go straight into the kind of finer details with that, we can use the original brush as well, and we can add another layer on top of the one that we've just made. So let's pick a different brush here. And now we go through and we start to overlap again exactly the way we did before, but we now have different layers, and this is what's going to make it look just that little bit more realistic. Because you've got that underlying base. Also, I'm not just putting them anywhere. I am always kind of looking. I'm looking for a gap, filling in the space, rotating if I need to. And sometimes you'll find that certain bits like this here, they don't really want to have a VDM brush on top of them. That's quite normal. So just be wary of things like that. And let's turn off our symmetry and really start making this look a bit more unique. There we go. And I think what we'll also do, just so that everyone knows how to do them, I think we can maybe do a stream where we go over how to make a VDM brush. And then you can make your own. I'm not going to lie, folks, I can be a little bit lazy when it comes to brushes. If someone makes a really nice brush that I like, I would rather support the artist and just pick up their brush. Because it allows me to create quicker. I think when I was a younger artist, I probably would have done a lot more like customization stuff and go, yeah, this will be good fun. I'll do a lot of random things. But now I'm more, I just want to make something cool. I have made a few brushes, custom brushes, but I've never released them or anything like that. I just kind of use them myself. Well, you're cool, Mr. Pat. Thank you, Mr. Whitefire. I appreciate that. Okay. How are we doing on time? All right, we're coming up on the hour. And then obviously, if when you've got something larger, you can obviously approach it with other brushes. So we've got another brush here, which is quite good for filling in. Same idea, but it's just going to fill in larger chunks of the character. I will be honest, I'm not a fan of these type of multi kind of clump brushes. I would much rather do the slow way and then give myself the option of adjusting the direction and directionality of the fur. So yeah, they can be quite useful, but I generally tend to take it a little bit slower with fur. For example, this shorter fur, we could actually use this brush here as a base. And then once we're, say, happy with the overall base shape of that, then we go back to our fur brush, and then we can selectively pick certain parts that we want to accentuate. We're a little bit low on resolution here, but hopefully you can see what I'm getting at. Right. And we've also looked at other ways of sculpting fur. We've actually done it several times throughout the course of these videos, so I don't want to labor the point too much. However, why don't we now take a little bit of an adjustment, folks, and let's switch over to doing some old school polygon modeling, if you will permit me. So before we do that, please do feel free to ask any kind of queries or questions that you might have before we move over to Maya and start working on our character lamppost. So while I set up how we're going to do that, like I said, if you have any queries or questions, fire them into the chat just now so that we can go over them in Zbrush before we move over to Maya. Has my tea gone cold is the question. Let's see. It's not too bad. Okay, let's see. Do we have any queries or questions? Don't think we do, not yet. All right. So before we move over to Maya, where we're going to work on the lamppost, we need to take our custom lamppost that we made, or our stand-in lamppost that we made when we were blocking out our character. So let's take a look at that just now. If we go into the whip folder here, we have, well, let me just hide all this, don't need this. In the whip folder, we have this here. This is our original Z-sphere pose of the creature. We also have the original Z-sphere A pose block out. and we have this lamppost. And our Mothman fits nicely on that lamppost. What would you recommend skill learning and software wise for an absolute beginner on a half decent laptop? Okay, so there, like many kind of questions, I suppose, in this field, it's all very dependent on what you have at your disposable, as in, you know, what's your budget, that type of thing. Because depending on your budget will completely depend on what software and skills that you can approach. Obviously, you can approach any skill for a, you know, for a low price. So for example, if you already have the laptop, that's the hardware sorted. If you are on a very low budget, then I would recommend going to something like Houdini or Blender. The reason I say that is that there is a very low barrier for entry in regards to cost. Now, there is a free version of Houdini available, which will allow you to learn it. There's limitations for it, and I think it's in things like resolution and such. And then you have Blender, which isn't free as much as people would like to make you think. It's not a free piece of software. The entry for it is free, but generally plugins are the way it works. So a lot of the time you may have to spend a bit of extra money in getting plugins that you need in order to do certain features, okay? So in that regard, those are the two options I would go if you're on a lower budget, would be Blender or Houdini. And in regards to the skills, well, Blender and Houdini are going to let you do everything, okay? Either one to varying levels of degree. So if you're wanting to do modeling and maybe a bit of sculpting, then I would go to I would edge towards Blender. If you're wanting to do anything else, I would go towards Houdini. I mean, to be fair, Houdini does allow you to do a lot of the same things. It's just the learning curve is a little bit harder, okay? If you don't have, or if you have a, you know, not a, you know, an unlimited budget, but if you've got a larger budget, then my recommendation would be ZBrush. For sculpting, maybe some painting, texturing, etc., and Maya. That's my personal recommendation. But to be honest, the software isn't the important part. It's the skill. It's the skills that come along with that. So ignore the software for this point, okay? Because again, that's very dependent on your budget, all right? And you can do anything. The software isn't important because that's just the tool, okay? What you really want to learn is the fundamentals of CG. So in my opinion, if you are an absolute beginner, I would start looking at understanding how polygons work, how the components of your 3D scene works, and learn all about that. Basic fundamentals, okay? Hey, Andre. Yeah, I'm doing okay, thanks. I'm doing okay. So yeah, Ironic Empress, I would focus on the fundamentals of CG and understand it. And I don't just mean, oh, I know what a polygon is or anything like that. Understand the full pipeline and just look into it. So right, concept, previs, modeling, all this kind of stuff. Get a basic understanding of it all and then work your way through it slowly. And then by doing so, and by getting a little bit more information on each part of the pipeline, you might actually discover something that you really enjoy. So say, for example, you saw CG and thought, hey, that looks really cool. I think sculpting is something I would like to do. But then you start to investigate more about the pipeline, more about what can actually be done on a show or in CG in general. And then you come across something like dynamics or fluid simulation or groom, cloth, rigging, pre-visualization. You could come across something and go, wow, that really interests me. That's really, and it's pushing all the right buttons for you. So that's why I would always recommend starting with a basic understanding of each step in the pipeline, okay? And the basic fundamentals of CG. And that's a complete agnostic, generic approach to it. Okay, if you came to me and said, I want to learn how to sculpt, absolute beginner, then there's a different answer to that. All right, but if you just want to if you're a complete beginner in CG and in 3D, then ignore the software, you get whatever you can, and do some research and understand how things work and what it all means. Okay, because then when you get into your first piece of software, it'll actually make a lot more sense from the get-go. All right. Hopefully that answers your question, Ironic Empress. But if you do have any other follow-ups, again, feel free to come and join us over on the Discord, and you can ask any follow-up questions as well. Okay, and we can maybe go into a bit more detail as well. Andre Frederick Mason, what size is this going to be printed? No idea, Frederick. I have no idea. It might not even get printed. I think it's just that would be that's the wouldn't it be nice if we could print it? So because that discussion came up, I thought, right, well, if it's maybe going to be printed, I'll make sure it's print friendly. There's still going to be a stage with any model, even if you've been planning to print it from the get-go, that you'll have to engineer it for print. So that's double checking the model for cavities, adding any keys and holes that you need to separate the model up. So if you maybe need to take the wing off and then have that connect as a separate object, then you have to think that through as well. Print all the things, Andre. This is what we're creating today, Andre. For anyone who has just joined us, we are at that hour stage. So let's do our little reminder for everyone. Welcome back to another Firestorm Studios live stream. My name is Pat, and today we are continuing working on the Mothman from our A to Z of Creatures series. So let's take a look at what this guy looks like at this stage. Let's just turn on all the things, and then we'll turn them all off as we don't need them. So there we go. Let's hide that and that. Is that the right one? No, here's the right one. There we go. And let's hide that too. There we go. So here we go, folks. This is what we are working on at the moment. Is our Mothman, based on the artwork of Sam Sheeran, Mr. Sam Sheeran. We can turn off the antenna as well, so you can get a better idea of what it's looking like. So we're getting close, folks. We're getting close. I'm at the moment, and we will take a look at the retopology that I'm doing over in Maya, but the rest of today's stream, we're going to focus on modeling the lamppost in Maya. Now, obviously, this could easily be done in ZBrush as well, but I wanted to work in Maya. Not something I've really done for Firestorm yet, and honestly, I kind of miss it. I miss working in Maya, so I want to kind of do a little bit of work in there and maybe share a few tips and tricks with everyone. Very nice. How did you do the fur on the chest part? The fur on the chest part is using a brush. It's a VDM brush from an artist called Dragon Lisco. Started out by just kind of general directional sculpting, like we have here. So a little bit of directional sculpting to dictate where the fur is going to go. And then that is either built up with a base of the Pablander sculpt brush for the fur, or if we go into the Dragon Lisco brush, we can grab one of these and we can start dragging out the fur like so. And then once we've got a rough base for the fur, we're going in and we're manually sculpting and adjusting as needed. That's so awesome. Thank you. Took so many notes to get the focus on fundamentals. I think I just wouldn't have known what terminology to use to even start searching for learning materials. Thanks. No problem, Empress. No problem at all. Glad that helped. Okay, so that is kind of where we're sitting at with this, but I need to export out my my lamppost, which is this guy here. So obviously this is this is what we're going to, this is the final idea for the image. This is just the rough block out. And we have our lamppost. And this is roughly the scale that we want to go with. Okay. So really cool. Fun thing is I bought these brushes and never used them. It's just reminded me. Yeah, really good brush sets. I have the scale one, as the scales one too. It's fantastic. And it's just because I'm lazy, folks. I just can't be, I'm just like, no, somebody else has spent the hours needed. And because that's something I should point out, folks. These brushes, these type of brushes, they apply so well because the artist has really tested them. They've spent a lot of hours putting these together and making them work. So just something to bear in mind. So we're going to take the lamppost and I'm just going to export this out into Maya. So one thing I have discovered recently is exporting OBJs from Zbrush right now seems to be kind of broken. I'm not very happy with how this has happened. I've checked all my preferences and I've reinitialized Zbrush and everything just doesn't seem to work cleanly at the moment. So I am instead going to use the FBX export. So I'm going to go into Z plugin, FBX export import, and I'm going to choose selected. So that's the selected subtool. And generally, something I would recommend is don't use the most recent FBX option. Use the one below it, okay? Use the one below it. And make sure I've got Maya Y upset as my axis. S normals is fine. Bin or ASCII, doesn't really matter for what we're doing. And we'll go to export. And let me just pop that over there. Okay. So that's now exported. So we're now going to have to jump over into Maya, which means I'm going to have to do a little bit of readjustment here. But before that, let me just check the chat. Thank you. FBI, hey FBI, how we doing? Hello sir, how are you doing? I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for coming along. It's good to have you here. So, as I said, we're going to switch over to Maya. So I'm just going to move my my tablet out the way here, or move my Cintiq out the way, and I'm going to bring in my tablet. So let's switch over to Maya. Hopefully this is fairly smooth. Double check. There we go. Okay, so hopefully everyone can now see my Maya screen. And I'm just going to adjust my chat window here so I can see it at the side of my Maya. Sorry folks, taking a little bit of adjustment. This is actually one of the reasons I don't switch over between software a lot on a stream, is it can be a little bit, it can be a bit of a pain. All right, so if I miss any chat, I apologize. I might have to just check the other screen here. How did you get miss talking to you? I'm not gonna lie. Oh well, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you, FBI. I appreciate that. But you can always join us on the. You can always join on the stream and say hi. So, just to give you a rough idea, let's take a look at where our retopology is going for the Mothman. So what I've done is I've brought in the combined version, and it's not finished in any way. This is something that I will not always do. I won't always finish a model before I retopologize it. I'll get it to be about 80% of the way, then I will do a cleanup with retopology, project all my details, and then continue sculpting, and then clean up as needed. So what I've done is I've brought in a decimated version of the model. Oh, we're getting a bit of slowdown. Sorry, folks. Maya being a bit funny. Oh, I know why. Sorry. I actually have, I think I've got anti-aliasing on. There we go. That should be better. That's better. There we go. So I have this, I think we're around about 350,000 points for this. So we've got a decimated version of that. That's set to live. And then I've split up the Mothman into different sections. So let's take a look at the body here. So I'm just going to tap the quad draw button. and you can see what we're working with. Now, when I'm doing retopology, it's rarely ever the finished topology until the whole model is complete. So I consider all of this as work in progress, and it will not be completed until everything is combined into one. And I generally work with separate parts like this, simply to speed up the retopology inside of Maya, because it can slow down if you try and do one whole piece at one go, okay? So if you do find that things are slowing down with retopology in Maya, then go ahead and split up your sections, okay? So what I've done here is I've created two shells for the inside of the wing membrane, and then the finger of the mesh, we're just creating a couple of dots. And I love this. This is actually what they're called. They are just referred to as dots. So if we go into the tool options here, which I'm not sure if you'll be able to see. No, you can't. Don't know why that's done that. Let me see if I can. Does that work if I split? There we go. So if I snap that over onto the side here and hide the outliner, you can see that it actually just says clear dots. So if I start snapping and putting, plotting some points and hit clear dots, it's going to get rid of it. I understand that it's what they are. It's the most colloquial term for them is a dot, but you know, I just love the fact that there's no official like fancy name for them. They're just dots. All right, so let's just continue putting this together. And I'm just going to finish this up a bit. So instead of placing the dots, I'm actually just tapping tab and creating myself a new polygon. You'll find that you have to do this sometimes inside of the quad draw of Maya, because sometimes it will get a little bit confused. Like for example here, something's gone a bit awry. So let's see what's going on there. Okay, just delete that face. Also, if you are a Maya user, you might be a bit confused as to why I have dots in the middle of each of my polygon faces. Okay, I know that by default, Maya simply has a red selection. I think this was actually one of the... I always felt it was a mistake for Autodesk to use that as the default. So if we go into Windows, Settings and Preferences, which you might not be able to see, no, it hasn't popped up. Okay, ignore me. We'll pass by that. This is just OBS not showing the right thing at the moment, folks. So let's just continue with the retopology, and then we'll get on to modeling our lamppost. And I apologize, folks, if you can hear shouting in the background. There is people outside in my street. Unfortunately, my office kind of is on the side of the house there where there is a busy street. So. Okay, there we go, folks. This is a little bit of retopology. I know it's not the most exciting thing to watch, so I don't really want to focus on it too much. But the same as when we're in Zbrush, if you have any questions or queries about Maya and how it works, then please, by all means, do shout out and ask in the comments. Another thing that I tend to do here is what you'll notice, you might be wondering why I've got 3 cylinders at the bottom of this. When I'm retopologizing, I will use primitive shapes that are as close as I can get to the shape I need to create, and I will quad draw that, and I will shrink wrap that to the model first. Then I'll go in and I'll manually edit it. Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's take the arm here for an example. Let me just take a polycube. I'm going to smooth the polycube. We do it more than once? No, we won't. Then I'm going to half the polycube, flatten it out, turn on wireframe so we can see what we're, actually no we can't because it's too dense. So I'm just going to move that into here, rotate it, snap it into place, move it forward, rotate it, and then I will just use the tools in my transformation tools to roughly get that into position. Like so. I'll then add in a couple of random edge loops. And then, and only then, will I go to my scan, make it live, grab my quad draw tool. I'm going to scale up the soft selection of my quad draw really high so it encapsulates the whole object. Then I'm just simply going to click and move, and it will roughly snap to the object underneath. Now, in some cases, you are going to get weird areas, particularly if it's got a higher point where it's going to snap and Maya's not going to be sure where it wants to connect to, but that's just the nature of Maya. You got to give it a little bit of a break. Maya is quite old, so, you know, and it hasn't had the same kind of updates as others, so it gets a bit confused at times. But now I can move this around. Like so. We can now just start moving this, grabbing the edges, and it's a really fast way to block out your retopology. There we go. Like I said before, what you do is not final. All going to be fairly temporary. Just clear those dots again. Move up using the edge. Sometimes Maya will do this where it just doesn't want to complete, and that's because we have an issue here where the retopology is interpenetrating with the scan. And the way around that is you've got two options. You can do what I did there, simply just go in, move it out, and then go back into quad draw and continue, which is generally what I do most of the time. But sometimes you just have to reposition a dot, and if the dot doesn't work, I switch to extrude. I try not to spend a lot of time fighting with the software. If something doesn't want to work for a particular reason, I switch over to something that will. Okay, so you can see here, just not really liking the geometry. It can be the angle. It could be that I haven't cleaned up my mesh properly. And a lot of the time, it will be something like that. It's most likely something I've done. I haven't cleaned up the mesh properly, so Maya doesn't know what to do with it. So I'll just do a quick average on the verts there, and then we'll go back in and see if that cleans things up. A little bit cleaner, but it still doesn't like that edge. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do this, and then do something like that. There we go. Sometimes you just have to approach things in a slightly different way. I'm also going very, very fast here, so that is going to have a bit of an issue too. And we're very close to another piece of geometry, so Maya's very likely getting confused. Just move that forward a bit. There we go. Okay, so let me just do a quick save there, and let's go into a new scene. Turn on our grid. I'm going to go to File and Import, and I'm going to go to the option box. In here, I'd hit the Reset Settings. I'm going to go into File Type and choose FBX. And I know this might seem like a silly thing to do, like, oh, just import the file. Well, you know, again, it comes down to following these basic rules, if you will. You're going to improve your chances of things not crashing and things working as expected. I get annoyed as well when software crashes or things don't work as I expect, but honestly, a lot of the time it can be human error. It's because we're trying to get through something really quick and we're asking the software to run faster than it can feasibly run. Okay, so, and every software does it. No software is perfect. Okay, so moving down the list, I'm going to go down to this namespace options, and this is important. I'm going to untick namespace, and under resolve, I'm going to turn on clashing nodes. This is my default whenever I'm importing an object into Maya. It generally will stop me from getting any kind of weird namespace issues and double naming conventions. Okay, so go to import, and I'm going to bring in my lamppost. Now, this gives you an idea as to how small this is in Zbrush. Because we started in Zbrush, our scale is somewhat off. Now, if I go into Create, Measure Tool, Distance Tool, I can do snap 2 points, and that tells me that this this lamppost in real life is how tall is that? I can't see the word. Let me 2 seconds. There we go. 5.5 centimeters. Okay, it's 5.5 centimeters in height in the real world. Okay, and this is another thing. Heather mentioned this yesterday when we were doing our review session. Scale is so important, and this is something that a lot of even modern day studios forget about. If you do not set your project scale, and that's one of the first things you should do. You're starting a project, don't jump into concept, don't jump into anything like that. As soon as you hit the 3D, get your scene scale set. Are you doing it in real world scale? Are you working in decimeters? Are you working in metric? Are you working in imperial? Make that decision early on and do not deviate from it, or do what you can to not deviate from it. In a large production, it's almost impossible for there not to be scale issues, but if you put it in place early on, you will mitigate a lot of problems. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going to check the chat, folks. I just just to say that Zbrush was the best software ever, but then Maxon took over. I agree. I'm not going to go onto a rant about it, but I do agree. I agree with that comment. I would have much preferred Pixelogic to just switch over to a subscription-based system and pay people and get people to pay for their upgrades rather than moving to a different company. And I know that that will probably scupper my chances of ever working with Maxon on the live streams, but yeah, I got to be honest about it, you know. Anyway, so with that in mind, I love your mug. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, I've got my own. I bought my own ZBrush mug. I bought my own ZBrush mug. So, all right, folks. Now, most of the time when I import something in from ZBrush and I'm planning on moving back to it, I don't actually move anything, okay? But when it comes to this lamppost, I'm not too worried about it. I'm actually quite happy to adjust the lamppost here, and then I can readjust it back in ZBrush, or alternatively, we can kind of pose things, okay? The reason I just find it easier to work on top of the grid than underneath it, okay? So, what's this? Love your mug. I can get it. Thanks, Andre. Thank you. I haven't upgraded ZBrush because I hate subscriptions. I don't mind subscriptions, okay? I know that might be a hot take. I don't actually mind subscriptions, okay? What I mind is paying for a subscription with no updates. And I'll be honest, I would rather see patch fixes than features. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think it's unfair for companies to put a lot of pressure on developers to add new features every single year. Instead, I feel that what we should have is patch fixes for a year, and then every second year, we get new features. I would be happy with that. And I think a lot of the community would be happy with that, because all you have to do is ask an Adobe user, well, they updated Photoshop again and Photoshop is broken. And I don't just mean, oh, that doesn't work. I mean completely broken. And then they have to release another hotfix. So patch the software, spend a year patching the software, and then in every second year, give us new features. I think it would put less pressure on the developers, and I think that the community would be happier because we end up with more stable software that isn't crashing on us all the time. But yeah, and to give you an idea, folks, like years and years ago, that's how it was. Before we had subscription-based software, you would get an upgrade when you got an upgrade. You know, you just got the upgrade when it was available. I mean, Andre, you might remember this, but Zbrush, when Zbrush 4R7 came out, that we had Zbrush 4R7 for what, 5 years before we got Zbrush 4R8. There was no upgrade. There was patch fixes, but there was no big update until 4R8 or something like that. So yeah. Anyway, folks, slight digression. So let's get on with our lamppost. So I'm going to bring in an image here just to show you. Let's jump into the front view here, and we'll go to View, Image Plane, Import Image. Just grab one of my references here. Now, the really cool thing about this image, I can't use that picture. It's got copyright on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use this one. This is from Google Street View. But the cool thing is that this lamppost is actually in Chicago. And I love the fact that Sam Sheeran, the original artist, used a lamppost design that is only found in Chicago. I love the attention to detail is amazing, because he didn't necessarily need to do that, because not everyone would think, oh, it's just a lamppost, it's just an ornate lamppost. Personally, I love the fact that he's went to this level of detail. So I have better images than the one I'm showing you, but they are currently covered in a lot of like watermarks. So I'm not going to put those on. I'm not going to put them on the screen. All right. So you just have to bear with me in that regard. Okay. But this is what we're going to be making. I know the detail is a little bit rough there, but hopefully I can show you a couple of tricks. So let's just move that off to the side so maybe people can kind of see it while we're working. And let's get stuck in. So we're going to start off with the base, and we're going to do it in a few different sections. And the way I approach this might seem a bit odd to new artists who might not have used the functions I'm about to use here. So I'm going to put the original one on a layer, on a template layer inside of Maya. I almost said ZBrush there. It tells you how, it lets you know how often I'm in ZBrush. I'm in ZBrush most of the time, and then Maya is my modeling and rendering software. So what we're going to do is I'm going to split this into 3 sections. We've got the main, we've got the kind of top section, which has got the lanterns on it, and that's going to kind of end about here. Then we have the kind of main pole of the lamppost, and that seems to go into this more ornate base. All right, but even the base we can split up into a few sections, at least to begin with, and then put that together. All right, so I'm going to start with I think I'm going to start with the main pole and get the shape that I need there. So I'm going to go to Create, NURBS Primitives, Circle. And I'm going to move, actually just going to move this off to the side, the main lamppost here. And we're just going to model the main pole of the lamppost in the center of the grid. Now, I'm going to go into the top view. I'm going to go into right click, Control Vertex. Now, Control Vertexes, you're similar You're going to be similar to with them when it comes to polygon modeling, but this is a NURBS curve. So you'll see that what we're getting is a Bezier. Okay, so we're getting a bit of a fall off as we move each of these around so we can create a cool shape. What this allows me to do is if I grab it, go into the channel control here, and I'm going to go into the sections. I'm going to type in 12. So now when I go back over to this, I end up with more CVs. I'm going to select every other CV, like so. I'm just going to scale that in, and that's not enough. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to, let me try here. Let's do 20. There we go. And again, I'm going to select every other CV. There we go. That's what I wanted, right? Now, I'm going to duplicate that and I'm going to move it up. And you'll notice, if you notice on, let me just find a way to showcase this for you folks. I'm trying to find the best way for you to follow along with what I'm doing. So I'm going to open up another camera here and just put my reference image in it. So you can see what it is I'm working on. And then I'll work here on the right hand side. Hopefully it's large enough on screen for you to see. But if you notice on the main pole here, there's a bit of a flare at the top as it goes around this section here. So I want to keep that in, but I want to put it into the primary part of the pole. So I'm going to duplicate this a couple of times and just scale it out. So it means that if we go to a side view and we grab our NURBS, it's going to look something like that. Okay, so that's the shape that we're dealing with here. I'm going to grab the bottom one, the middle one, and then the top one. And I'm going to go to surfaces and I'm going to go to loft. Okay. And what that's going to do is it's going to essentially just generate geometry between those two shapes. But what's cool about this is that I can grab one of these shapes here and I can actually start manipulating it. So if I wanted to turn this back into a circle and I went into the top view, let me just hide. Let me just make sure I've got the right one here. Should have named these, I didn't. That was a big mistake. Go into the top view and then grab every other vert on the inside. I can actually start to scale that out. And then if we go back, you'll start to see that the shape that we had, so we've got the more ornate shape at the bottom here, as it starts to blend up, we get a nice natural transition. Now you have to just adjust that a little bit, maybe take this and move this one down, maybe scale it up or down. You can see that as I change the scale of this, there we go. We probably need one in the middle as well, just to help balance that out so it doesn't want to dip in. However, if we go to the lofted surface, we will have options to change that. Okay. So you can do something like this where you can close it off and it'll try and close the whole loop, but we don't want that. We can change the degree of it. Okay, so that's going to make it more linear, so it's not going to try and collapse in on itself as we change the size of it. So now I can start working with this the way I want. Go. And then that just gets me kind of almost the way there. That's kind of what I'm looking for. So once I'm happy with the basic shape, I can go to Modify, Convert, NURBS to Polygons, Option Box, always reset your settings. I'm going to choose Quads and then choose Control Points and hit Apply. Now, if I hide the NURBS curves in the lofted surface and go to Mesh Display Harden Edge and turn on our wireframe. Nope, wrong one, that's X-ray. Turn on the wireframe and we have the same object, but the actual construction of it was far easier. And the reason I showed you that approach is that it's just a way to work in Maya that's very non-destructive. Okay, and I know other, Blender and 3D Studio Max, they all have NURBs, and it's just another way to work. Okay. What's great about this as well is I can grab the edges that I want. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab all the edges and then just double click on the ones that I don't want, like so. And I'm going to do a bevel. Go into insert edge loop tool. I'm going to choose how many edge loops I want. I'm going to say 5 and just click, and there we go. It's going to evenly space those out. There we go. So now we can just continue working on it as though it was a standard polygon surface. But we're getting that nice transition between one shape into another. And it happens all very, very quickly. Let me just check the chat here. I would feel better if a company could do better in making it worth my money. I prefer having a whole package. Yeah, there is that's fair. I would say that's fair to a point, because you are still getting a whole package, and developers do need to be paid for the work they're doing between the yearly subscriptions. I just think it's more from a company perspective. I think that it would be better for the consumer, and I think it would be better for the workers if there was a staggered release schedule. I don't believe that every artist out there would rather have features over stability. Maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just me, but I would rather my software was stable and didn't crash than have a new feature. Because, I mean, you ask most artists and they'll say that the software they maybe use 10% of the software. So yeah. Let me just check the chat again. I still have ZBrush on discs here. Amazing. I think I still have my 3.5 disc somewhere, I think. Yeah. How are we doing for time? Okay. I've spent too much time yammering. Well, I'm going to grab a cylinder. And actually, you know what? Let's do how do I want to do that? Yeah, we'll do a cylinder. And I'll do 12 to begin with. And I'm just going to delete the top and bottom off this. I generally use vanilla Maya as well. I don't generally use, I'll use the bonus tools because they're free, but I don't really use any major plugins when it comes to this type of stuff. So I'm just going to put in an edge, bevel it. Actually, you know what? Before we do the bevel, let's take that edge and just scale it out, and then we do bevel. This is the only downside, actually, I would say, to doing stuff in Maya, is that it requires a bit more focus on my part. It's definitely harder to kind of explain what you're doing as you're thinking about it. So for this part here, what I will be doing is I'm going to unwrap this cylinder, and I'm going to show you how I unwrap things as well. Okay, and the reason that we're doing that is that if I unwrap this and put it into something like Photoshop, I can take all the ornate detail I need and I can add that ornate detail as a texture map and then apply that in ZBrush rather than trying to sculpt it by hand. Okay. So checking out some of the other designs that we've got. There we go. Okay. And then I'm going to take the bottom of this and just do something like that. There we go. Let me just check the chat here. Wondering, Pat, what is a project you can say that you are really proud of? Oh, wow. A project that I'm really proud of. I'm really proud of quite a few. Let me think here. Wow, that's a good question. Project I'm really proud of. I mean, I'm trying to think between kind of personal and professional projects as well. That's definitely a key question to answer. What am I most proud of, or really proud of? Sorry, let me think here. Sorry, while I'm constantly just, there we go. Let me just. Hey, Vega. Welcome to the stream. What am I really proud of? What am I proud of? Well, I'm proud of, trying to think. Okay, I think the project, I don't know if it's the one I'm most proud of, but it's definitely up there. In fact, yeah, okay, I'm probably going to say yes, because of how much it kind of means to me as like from a career perspective and as a full circle perspective. I think my workshop for the Gnomon workshop on DigiDoubles, that's probably one of my proudest moments in my career, simply because I learned so much from the Gnomon workshop when I was starting in the industry, and then getting to a point in my career where I was able to create a workshop for them. That was a very, very proud career moment for me. And it's still quite hard to believe that I've actually got a workshop with them. And it's also doing something that it's also on a topic that I feel quite strongly about needing a bit more consistency. And that's just through my experience of going to different studios and the DigiDouble pipeline being surprisingly more chaotic than I expected it to be. So for me, it was really a moment of, well, a moment of pride, which is not usual, not common for me, because I really felt as though I had been able to give something back to the industry, to all the people that have trained me, and just brought all of the skills and experience that I'd gained and put it into a workshop that I felt could help not just new artists into the industry, but maybe existing artists as well that are looking for a way to change their skill set. And it seems like a really boring subject, how to make a digidouble. But honestly, I think it's something that more people should know how to do. And I think it's one of those things that you will need to make when you move into the industry. Even if you're not a character person, you may be asked to make a digidouble. So I think it's a good thing to have. And I think that's probably my proudest moment. I think project-wise, I guess you can consider that a project, but I think teaching as a whole, is for sure my proudest achievement in my career. Is getting to pass on my knowledge that I've been very fortunate enough to gain over the last 18 years, working in the animation industry, working in VFX, working just in CG, and getting to share my passion with other people. You know, and students who have all that excitement built up of like, oh, I want to do all this, I want to do this, this will be really cool. And that's that. You never get tired of that feeling, I think, as a teacher, particularly when you're getting to kind of pass on, tips, tricks, ways to do things. So yeah, yeah, a little bit of a chaotic and jumbled answer, but hopefully that makes sense to everyone. But yeah, I think specific project would be my Gnomon workshop, I think, and then overall teaching, and that's from the very first day I started teaching to right now. So you're a freelance as well, right? I'm wondering if we ever worked on a project together without even knowing. I don't really do that much freelance, if I'm being completely honest. I tend to move away. I've tended to avoid freelance specific work. I prefer to work on studio contracts rather than doing freelance. I spent time as a freelancer for the first 7 years of my career, and then I transitioned over to the VFX industry full time. So right, sorry folks, I have completely lost focus. Okay, your name and voice sounds so familiar. I did create tutorials back in 2011 and 2012 for digital tutors. It's now known as Pluralsight. The tutorials are no longer available because they're out of date. But potentially that's maybe where you've seen some of my work. And I've done workshops for 3D World magazine, obviously the Gnomon Workshop, Creative Block, lots of different outlets for kind of tutorials and things like that. So maybe that's that might be what it is. Honestly, I mean, that's the thing, Andre. I mean, I can't place your name, so I don't know if we have or not. I'm not sure. I need to check. What I might do is I might check your IMDb and I'll check mine and I'll see if we can cross-reference if we have worked on the same project at some point. All right, folks. So, oh, Maya has crashed. That's not good. Sorry, folks, bear with me. Let's see if we can fix Maya before it craps out on us. Oh no. Weird. All right, folks, apologies. Maya has completely crapped out on me, so we're going to switch back over to Zbrush. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, folks. I was kind of hoping to continue working on that, but wow. You can't see what I can see, but Maya has just committed harikari completely in the background. I'll be honest, folks. I've had issues like this with Maya in the past when I try to live stream with it. It doesn't seem to like sharing the spotlight with other software. No, not at all, Andre. That's the thing. Not at all. No, not at all. The whole point of these, obviously, as you know, the whole point of our live streams is to inform and answer questions, and hopefully the chat that everyone watching got a little bit something out of that. That little kind of back and forth, folks. So let's jump back over to our Mothman, seeing as Maya has decided to crap out on me. I'm not going to lie, folks, I had a feeling. I was like, I don't think this is going to go well with Maya. I think it's going to fight me here. Going to fight with me. So let's continue with, let's do a little bit more detailing on our character, I think, a little bit. So let's go back to the fur. Or do you know what we could do? No, I don't want to do any details to the body of the character until we get the retopology done, and then bring that back in to ZBrush. Okay. Just need to find the right version of the fur. There we go. That's us. I think, is it that one? Oh, no, it's this one here. There we go. That's the one we want. All right, folks. I'm going to pull that down into the work in progress, and we'll do the same with this one. But before I do that, I want to sample the color here and then apply that to our new version here. I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit and then just do fill object. And I'll take these bits here and we'll just get rid of those. There we go. We're going to come back in with our DL fur brush. And I'm going to pick this one here. See how that looks. I don't know if I like that. I think I'm probably going to stick with this one. I do quite like this. So, as I said before, I prefer working these up individually than I do doing them in large chunks. So, but I want to add a bit more chaos into it a little bit, but I'm not really sure. Let's do a little bit of directional sculpting first. I'm going to take my dam standard here. I'm going to draw a thin line in the middle. Then I'm going to take the pab clean and I'm going to change the alpha to alpha 61. And I'm just going to start doing something like this. So what we're doing is we're doing the same as we did before, but we are indicating in a clearer way where the direction of that fur is going to go. I'm just going to hide the wings one more time. Oh, come on, there we go. And we'll bring back the fur here. How is that looking? It's a little bit dark. Let me turn off the paint here. There we go. We'll bring that down, and this will all come down to the middle. Under the legs. And we can do the exact same on the back. So we can start indicating how we want that fur to flow. When we get to here, we can have it flow around the tail. And this is more, I mean, it's less about getting it perfect and more just giving yourself something to follow. It's just a different way of making your life that little bit easier. There we go. Might overlap it as well. All right. If I need to, I'll go into the move brush with AccuCurve, and again, like we did before, we can pull out some of those tufts first. We don't have to do it with it, we can do it manually as well. There's no need to do it with the custom brush. And if you really want to go far with it, you can go into the brushes and choose snake hook, skip the warning, and then lower the intensity ever so slightly. And just, I'm going to have to, swish and flick is what's coming to mind with this. And that's essentially what you're doing. You're grabbing a part, and then as you pull it away, you just flick it down, and that will give you the fur. Okay, again, you want to be very, very careful when you do it like this because it can look repeated very quickly. Okay, very, very quickly. Okay. So let's jump back over to DL Fur Brush. I'm going to grab one of these and see how this looks up here. Yeah, there we go. That is too obvious a shape. So let's do something like this. And you'll see here how obvious it is when we start to repeat. Okay. Be really careful about that. Great tip. I'm working on a creature for a project that need this kind of fur. Ah, cool. Yeah. I mean, again, if I'm working on a client project and it's time sensitive, you will find me use brushes that I've paid for commercial purposes, or or things like that, because it's just about getting the job out the door. And again, what I'm also doing here is I'm being very careful and I'm overlapping some of them to kind of double up, and that just creates a little bit more randomness. It's a kind of good way to kind of cheat the symmetry. And of course, you can change the type of stroke. So if I went to spray stroke and did this, you're going to see a totally different effect. Okay, so as I drag this down, you can start to see that's actually not too bad. We can work with that actually. But it will get very, very messy very, very quickly. So personally, I prefer to do it by hand, even though it takes that little bit longer. I would rather do it by hand and have full control over where the fur is going. I'm now just going back, looking for any little gaps that I feel need a little bit of an extra piece of fur. There we go. There we go. All right, so I'm going to take this brush here and see how remember what I was saying before, we can change the direction of the fur depending on which side we're going to use. just to create different effects with the fur. I think I'm probably going to do those manually. And we can jump back to our clay build-up brush. I'm going to go into the brush options and I'm going to choose Reset Current Brush. Reset Current Brush. And then I can go in and start refining some of the shape as we did before. A wee bit more deliberate about where things are going. And let's now go with trying to create that kind of almost loinclothy look at the bottom. Again, we've got to be very careful about that because it can look a little bit dodgy. And what I'll do here now is, once I've got that in place, now I can start to refine the shape a bit more with my cleanup brush or my clay brush. Make it look a little bit more randomized. Bring in the pab fur brush. That's definitely not working the way I want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into alpha. And if you sometimes find that your brush you're using is giving you a bit of a crispy look, go into the alpha, go into modify and just blur it. Blur it quite high. And that can sometimes soften the effect. There we go. What's this? Sorry, Pat, what is the name again of this brush for the fur? I know I have it, but it's lost somewhere in my perfect organized library, spread across 3 hard disks. Okay, yeah, it's a brush called Dragon Lisco, or that's the artist's name is Dragon Lisco, and it's just their fur VDM brush. Drop me a message on Discord, Andre, and I can send you the link. So let's switch back over to the clay brush, and I think I'm going to go back in and change the alpha again. Make sure I am on symmetry. There we go. Or off symmetry, should I say. I'm just going to start breaking some of the edges here. Like so. There we go. Oh, that's getting in the way. Okay. I'm kind of having a bit of fun with this. I'm just discovering some things. It might change, it might not. But what I do really want to kind of reinforce here, folks, is that, when you're doing this kind of thing, it's never going to, be a one and done. You're going to have to build up the different layers to get the look that you want. Let's take this part here and let's just take our snake hook brush and make sure I'm not on symmetry. I'm going to just lower that intensity a little bit. And I'm just going to pull that down ever so slightly. A little bit messy in there, so we will go in and clean it up. And for some of the extra details here, we'll just use the blender brush. There we go. I'm going to clean up the edge here because, again, it is going to be 3D printed, so I don't want any weird spiky parts on a surface like that. And there we go. Oh, I need to fill that in. That actually, I didn't notice that. Let's just, oh, what brushes? Oh, fill that part in there. There we go. I found it, as a lot of other brushes I see, that can be very handy. Yeah, I think that's, you know, that's quite common. You know, you forget that you've got all these brushes at hand that you could use. I do it as well. I do it all the time, you know. Okay. Let's grab this again. How are we for time? Oh, we are actually on, we are on the 2-hour mark, folks. I've lost my brush. Where's it gone? Let me just pop a different material on here. Projects. Whoa! Zbrush has had a, there we go. There we go. What are we looking for here? Da, 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 da. There we go. All right. Quite a lot of noise in this, but it makes it look quite cool. And I'm just going to continue adding a little bit more. Let's actually switch this out. There we go. All right. Okay, folks. So I think we've done a fair amount this afternoon, and we are at the 2-hour mark. So I'm going to ask once again if anyone has any final questions or queries about ZBrush, about the projects that we're doing. If anyone wants to see any older models that we've done in this series, you can let me know. We can always go through them as well for the next 5-10 minutes. And while you guys are coming up with your questions, I'll just remind you all to please do what you can and follow us on all of our socials. You'll find all of the links in the QR code below this video. Make sure to check out our Discord. The community over there is fantastic and you will be in very good hands. And of course, if you are looking for a mentorship, you can check out the Discord as well, and you can get more information on that if it's something that you're looking for. All right, I don't do the marketing bit nearly as well as Heather does, but I liked her idea of maybe putting it on a button, or maybe kind of just doing like an ad break and doing it that way, which would be kind of cool. All right, folks. Well, as I said, I want to thank you all for coming along and hanging out with me this afternoon. Hopefully you learned a fair amount about what we were doing today. As always, you can always reach out to us if you've got any further questions over on the Discord. And I guess it just leaves me to say, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you all again on Monday, where we will be hopefully finishing off this, our Mothman, where we're going to start posing him around our lamppost. All right. Okay, folks. Until then, look after yourselves, enjoy your weekend, and take care. Bye for now.